We are exactly 2 weeks away from WWDC, so in today's video I will be talking about what I'm expecting we'll see and what we won't see at Apple's developer conference opener on June the 7th. So let's do it. I'm iCave Dev and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you. And if you're not already aware, WWDC or DubDub is Apple's developer conference every year opening in June, and the opening keynote is where Apple announces the biggest changes coming to each of their platforms in the fall. Of course, anything that would give away hardware features of the upcoming products tend to get skipped over a little bit, but there are occasionally some hints. And in 2020, as well as being the first of Apple's excellent digital events, it was also when Apple first announced their transition to Apple Silicon, and without that I probably wouldn't have a channel right now. So on the software side, we'll start with iOS. We've had very few rumours around what Apple will be announcing on any of their software platforms actually this year, which could mean one of two things. Either there aren't any big changes coming with iOS 15, and it'll be more about efficiency and performance and cleaning up the code that's already there, or that Apple has just really got their stuff together in terms of locking things down on the software front. It's only people within Apple that see the software stuff, so it's not like you've got the huge supply chain. So let me know what you think down in the comments, and feel free to hit that subscribe button while you're there. One of the big hits of last year were widgets, and also users discovering that they could get custom icons for apps in a very convoluted way by using the Shortcuts app. Now I have a feeling that both of those could come together with Apple introducing something similar to Widgetsmith, allowing you to add custom and possibly dynamic app icons to your home screen. Now this makes a lot of sense, along with the rumours that Apple will allow you to set different notification settings for different scenarios, like being at work, driving, bedtime and more. Perhaps Apple could even give us different home screen layouts depending on those scenarios, so while you're at work you'll be presented with your calendar and office apps front and centre, replaced by social networks on your lunch break, and streaming services when you get back on the train to get home. There are also rumours of a new design for the notification centre and the control centre, but that's kind of about it. I mean, I'd love for the iPhone to get the option of landscape home screens like we had with the old Plus models as well, but I just don't see it happening. Side-by-side multitasking on the iPhone would be pretty awesome though, unless you needed a keyboard for anything. Now, iPadOS last year got the unified sidebar and scribble handwriting recognition, but now that the new iPad Pro is here, I think many are hoping for big changes, though I'm not completely convinced. Apple generally won't add much that the past 5 years worth of iPads can't run across the board, though I do think that the Apple Pro apps are on the way, but they might not surface until September, as Apple normally only does OS level stuff at these keynotes and not specific apps that you'll be able to get. Also, to those hoping that macOS will come to the iPad, I'd really encourage you to watch Max Tech's video on the M1 iPad Pro versus the MacBook Pro. The iPad absolutely annihilates the MacBook in a lot of tasks, even with exactly the same silicon inside, and I think it's because macOS has just so much more overhead than iPad, because the iPad is only concentrating on processing one or maybe two apps at a time. So if you're holding on for multi-layered windows and kind of resizable windows like you get on a Mac coming to the iPad, I don't think it's going to happen, because Apple would have to have so much more active stuff going on in the background, which, to be completely honest, is just going to slow down the foreground. The iPad is great at focusing on one task and doing it really, really well. Now, I'd also love to see a better file management solution come to the iPad, maybe with Finder replacing files and the opportunity to work on files that are on an external drive over Thunderbolt without having to import them first. Also, multi-monitor support has been asked for a lot on iPad, though using a Magic trackpad and keyboard might be the best way of unlocking this, as without them or some other kind of input method, it's impossible to actually interact with what's on that secondary display. watchOS 8 will probably get a couple of nice new features too. The accessibility features that Apple demonstrated last week are nothing short of magical, and it seems like many of them use the same kind of movements that you would use to control a prosthetic limb, but to control an Apple Watch instead. I could see Apple though bringing Translate to the Apple Watch, which would be pretty handy. Assuming it's not there already, I didn't actually check. We know that Apple will do something else with health sensors with the Series 7 too, but that's for another video. Bear in mind that in recent years, the sort of thing they announced for Apple Watch are things like walkie-talkie and the hand washing function. but not stuff that's to do with the hardware that's coming. Then you've got Apple TV and HomePod, which for me are most likely to pick up HomeKit integration, becoming the smart behind the smartphone even more. And of course, macOS, we will get the name, we will get something else, but I haven't got a clue what. My only real thought is that Rosetta will get an end date at this WWDC, so Apple will probably say that any apps that get updated from now on or get uploaded for the first time to the App Store will all need to have those universal versions. I don't think Apple is going to keep Rosetta around for far too long because it is something that impacts the battery life. I think a lot of the hardware we'll be expecting to see as well, if any, will be along Mac lines, and I'm becoming more confident that we will see the MacBook Pro in 14 and 16-inch sizes with new ports and the new X variant of Apple's M1 inside too. Apparently there could be a couple of different variants on the graphics side though. And I don't think that we will just be seeing silver and space grey, which a lot of people have mentioned, though I do expect deeper tones than those in the new iMacs. Also, a Mac Mini Pro has been mentioned by Luke Miani as almost ready to go, and he suggests that these could also get a redesign into a flatter shape than we currently have. The new iMac in its larger display size I think is probably about 50-50 for me at the minute, but I would love to see it released here as well. It seems Luke may have seen these from his sources, but that being said, John's processor AirTags in 2019, so that doesn't necessarily mean that the product is going to arrive soon. Finally, we could get a glimpse of Apple's Mac Pro with Apple Silicon. If they peg it for a December release, I think we could get a little look in. And before we move on, let me know which product you are most excited for down in the comments, and like the video if you are just generally excited about all of the WWDC stuff. Next up, I gave answers, but we have a whole bunch of your questions to cover today. But first, Siri, I have some bad news. The people have spoken and you are fired.
What the fuck?
Moving swiftly on, Ben Shegog asks, do you think the new 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros will get the mini LED display? I've heard from Luke Miani that the new MacBook Pro will just get Liquid Retina, not XDR. And our next question is about this too. Dusts asks, do you still believe that we'll get mini LED on the upcoming MacBook Pros, which are rumoured to be coming at WWDC? Okay, this is the part that I'm 50-50 on because we're pretty confident that they are coming. We've also heard from the supply chain in swift succession that they have managed to nail doing the mini LED XDR displays, and also that they're really struggling with them and might not have them in time. So my thoughts are that we will see them, and we will see them with mini LED, but if we don't, then I think the redesign is going to have already happened in order to accommodate them, so the thickness will be there, but it might just have a little bit of a gap in there behind the regular LCD display. James Apple, will you buy an M2X Mac Pro in the G4 Cube form factor? That one is 100% dependent on funds. If I can afford it, I may well. It depends what the performance looks like. It depends how awesome it is. I think it's going to be pretty awesome, so there's a reasonable chance if I've got the money. Tech Hyped asks, can't wait for iOS 15 and let's see what they have in store for us. By the way, what are your thoughts on Android 12? Do not surpass me. So the do not surpass me part is because myself and Tech Hyped decided to have a bit of a race to 10,000 subs. He was starting on about 7,400. I was starting on about 6,000, I think, and I'm hopefully about to pass him. Sorry about that. What are my thoughts on Android 12? I don't have any thoughts on it because it's Android. I don't particularly care. I did see the screenshots. They look quite nice, but that doesn't make it a good operating system. Pascal Munnix, do you think there's a chance that the iMac Pro comes back? Cool question. I think the issue here is that it's difficult to know because names are just names. They could just bring out the larger iMac and it could be super powerful and they just call it iMac and not give it the Pro name. I don't know if they will or not, but my thoughts are if they decide to call it iMac Pro that they might do a 24-inch version of that as well, which will come with maybe those black bezels and darker tones. That's my thoughts, that they would do then a 24-inch and a 30-inch iMac Pro, and iMac becomes your base level with the M1 chip, and then M2 next year and M3 following that. That's the way that I think it would happen if it does. Abe A Rao. When will Apple make a watch that is compatible with Android? That's going to boost up sales for sure. And do you think any Android smartwatch has come up to the level of Apple Watches? So when will Apple release Apple Watch for Android? They're not going to. I don't think it will happen ever. What they will do is make the Apple Watch work as a standalone device. So if you've got an Android and you want to use an Apple Watch, you can. It just won't pair with your phone. It will be its own device. And they're already kind of getting towards this with setting up from one iPhone for multiple users. So like family setup. So I think it might be something along those lines. That's one of the things that Watch OS might get, is the fact that it may be independent from now on and not require an iPhone at all to set it up, let alone one that you particularly own yourself. In terms of the Android watches coming up to the level, the Pixel watch looks really good. It's got that nice round screen. I'm not particularly worried about the round screen, but it looks like they've done a decent job with it, so credit where credit's due. The Golden S. iCove answers, if macOS gets the same amount of games in Windows with native Apple Silicon support, will Apple make a MacBook G16 or 17? And just as if it wasn't obvious enough, cover it with RGB, because that's the laptop gaming meta. I do think we're going to get more games coming to macOS. I don't think we're ever going to get to the level that we have on Windows, at least for the next 5 years. And I don't see Apple creating a gaming specific laptop. It just doesn't really fit with what Apple does. Gaming is a thing that they do, but it's never been their focus. So I would say that that's unlikely, but I would kind of love to see it. Yuri Tech asks, what is a day in the life of an iCave video? Funny you should ask. Let me just check the time. It is 1:13 AM. That's the time that I'm recording this video. I'm tired. This is not ideal, but this is how things are right now. This will then be edited quite early in the morning, hopefully before my son goes to school, so that I've actually got time to get it uploaded and stuff, because I'm back at work now, so I'm having to kind of burn the candle at both ends a little. I am trying to kind of refine my process though, to make the editing and everything else a little bit quicker. It's part of the reason that Siri is no longer reading these questions, because it's another kind of step and adding something else into the equation. We might also change the way that we do the graphics on screen, again, just to make life a little bit easier. Marcin Kowalczyk, Surround by uploaded a video with that title on the 15th, new M1x iMac Pro leaks, smaller chin, and WWDC launch revealed. M1 iMac at WWDC confirmed. Greg from Greg's Gadgets seems to oppose this, however, Space Gray accessories for iMac got discontinued, so this weighs towards WWDC release. Now, the Space Gray stuff going away doesn't necessarily mean that it's right around the corner. It probably just means that they don't want to make any more because they haven't got the iMac Pro that it used to come out with. So it kind of makes sense that they would discontinue it and just kind of run down the stocks that they've got because they don't need it anymore. However, the new peripherals will probably come with different stuff involved. I do think we might start to see these OLED keycaps coming to some of the keyboards that are coming, things like that. So that would be a pretty awesome thing. What if even your trackpad for the Pros came with an LCD display on it, or an OLED display? That would be pretty awesome as well, so you could multitask your trackpad. So I did watch Saran's video, love his work. He's a great YouTuber and find some really interesting tidbits out there. He does some great research, so I would encourage everyone to go and check him out, but not enough that he overtakes me, because he's just behind on subscribers at the moment. And Saran, I love you, but I still want to beat you. Rabid Cyber asks, do you think it will be possible to jailbreak the new M series chips on iPads, or is the security finally becoming unbeatable? Now, on reading this, my initial reaction was, people still jailbreak stuff? Really? It's like 2021. But if that's something that people still do, I would never say that security is unbreakable. It just doesn't get to that point. It just depends whether the effort that you need to go to is actually worth it for the outcomes that you get. So, like, any encryption can be broken. It's just a case of whether it will take a month, or 3 years, or 27 years, or longer than the universe has been around. But I would ask, and if anyone else has opinions on this, what's the point in jailbreaking these days? Does anyone still do that? If you do, let me know in the comments. Nick Felstead asks, iCave answers, do you think Apple could move to a chiplet design like AMD as the M series grows? E.g., could you have the GPU on a separate chiplet but on the same CPU? Yep, absolutely, and I do think that that is probably the way that this is going to go. If you look at the current M1 chip, the RAM is, the unified memory rather, is soldered onto the top of the chip. It is kind of a system in package. It's one of these kind of stacks of different components. So absolutely, I think that is definitely something that Apple will be looking at doing. And I think it might be the case for the new GPUs, because there's going to be a 16 and a 32 core option. I think we may well see that happen on this one. And I also think that when they come to make their Mac Pro chips, that they're probably going to consist of 4 dies from an M1X being put into one huge chip system on a package thing. And that would be pretty awesome. Adam M, do you think that Parallels and VMware will be able to introduce x86 emulation as opposed to virtualizing ARM, Windows/Linux? I hear x86 emulation in Windows for ARM is not very good. I don't think it's something they're even going to bother trying to do, because I think you're going to see over the next probably 3 years that the vast majority of Windows laptops will run ARM themselves. So it's more of a case of Windows for ARM is going to get better rather than needing to emulate x86, because I think that most of the games are going to get ported over to it because people are going to want to play them on laptops. Rob, ooh, we've missed you, man. iCave answers, on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro with mini LED screen, if the entire screen is black with a single white pixel, does the single pixel have a halo or blur around it? Because the mini LED lit around it is bigger than the single white pixel. Can you tell how big the single mini LED is compared to the entire screen? Compared to the single pixel, how does the mini LED screen compare to a Samsung OLED tablet, the mini LED screen in the iPad? Okay, so I've not seen these side by side, so I can't give you a direct comparison. However, I can give you some of the information. So there are, I think, 10,000 LEDs in the backlight, and they are split into groups of 4, I think. So you have 2,500 local dimming zones, so they are much bigger than a pixel, absolutely. However, I think that Apple's engineering team, based on the images that I've seen, and I haven't seen either of these in person yet, it looks like they've basically made the pixel mesh a lot tighter so that when they're black, they're basically blocking far more of the light that might get out, especially around those individual pixels that we're going to light up white. That being said, I'm not a particular fan of looking at a single white pixel on a black screen. I know it's a thought experiment, but when it comes to it, there's very few situations where you're going to have that exact scenario where it would make any difference. In terms of the reviews that we've been seeing, though, most people are saying it's better than OLED, which is kind of surprising to me, because I thought that OLED would be the kind of perfect for it, but the contrast ratio is so good on these that I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. Certainly they will have a longer life cycle, and they just don't have a lot of the other drawbacks of OLED with burn-in and all the rest of the stuff. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching this show. I'm losing my voice because it's very late at night and I need to go to bed so I can get up and edit this. Thanks so much for watching. Hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. It does make a big difference. And don't forget to ask me any of your iCave answers down in the comments. See you tomorrow.